I'll watch what I usually do is I'll watch the microphones and make sure nobody's unmuting themselves.
Okay.
And you watch the chat for Carla and then alert her if there's any questions that pop in.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right. Awesome.
Hey, Carla.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Just running around. I've got no air conditioning, so I hope that you all can hear me just fine. I've got my fan running, and I'm hoping that the air conditioning person shows up, but hopefully not in the middle of our discussion today.
There you go. There you go. All right. So good morning, everyone. Glad to see all of you on here this morning. This is another presentation brought to you by the Virginia Community Colleges Association. This morning we have with us Carla Kimbrough. Carla is the Diversity and Inclusion Equity and Inclusion Officer at the Systems Office, so with the VCCS. And I don't know if you guys remember, but Carla was at our first at our meeting in 2019, our last meeting, not our first, but our last meeting in 2019, when our diversity committee was commission was formed. And it was a wonderful presentation, Carla. Thank you so much. So we're looking forward to today. And Carla, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you have a go at it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and I do want to pull together, I want to share with you some information about our strategic plan, Opportunity 2027. I'm sure you all at least have heard a little bit about it, so I hope I can add a little information. And then I want to talk with you about bias and how it can impact our hiring practices. And then third, I want to share with you some basic information about the search advocate process that we introduced to the VCCS in 2019. And hopefully you might be inspired to talk with your HR leader at your institution to gain information about getting trained. And okay, I'm hearing Sabrina say that she's having a little harder time. Is this a little better? Hopefully it is. I'll try to talk a little louder. So you know what? Let me turn off my fan because I want to make sure that's not causing me to interference. Hold on. Okay, so hopefully I won't break out in a sweat, but if I do, you know why. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So basically, I think I did not complete my thought, but hopefully you'll be inspired to find out about the search advocate process. And then you might want to talk with your HR leaders or your supervisor at your college and see if you can get trained. I think that's where I left off before I turned off the fan. So with that, I want to share, this was one of the earlier, oops, hold on. Okay. I want to share with you one of the earlier documents for Opportunity 2027, which is the name of our strategic plan. And it just went into effect July 1st, so 13 days ago. And basically, Opportunity 2027 will be a North Star for Virginia's community colleges. And so I want to share with you some of the information that was pulled together by Dr. Sharon Morrissey. It was originally thought that the strategic planning team would look at what does it mean for community colleges, the future of work, the future of higher education in light of the pandemic, and what would happen to our colleges in terms of how we deliver education, how our programs are structured, and just, the things that we learned from being in the midst of a pandemic. So that was where it began. But then we had the George Floyd killing in Minnesota, which really galvanized people across the country to think about the impact of systemic racism. And that caused the chancellor to give the strategic planning task force a new assignment or an additional assignment. And that was to figure out what we can do to promote, and I'm looking for another word, but promote the concept of equity. And so one of the things that I was particularly involved in is trying to figure out, how do we define equity? And this is the definition that we came up with after much discussion in our committee. And this, it says proposed, but it has now been accepted by the state board. And so this is the definition. Equity is the existence of an environment in which policies, our rules, practices, the way that we go about our work, and the beliefs that we have are grounded in the principle of fairness, and that acknowledges that structural racism, gender disparities, and systemic poverty, while honoring the diversity of humanity. So we want to have an environment that really walks out the values that we're going to be fair, but we're also going to recognize that structural racism, gender disparities, and poverty exist for people we serve in the community college. To continue, this environment explicitly prioritizes the success of all students to ensure that they have the necessary resources to fulfill their college and career goals. So, we often hear these discussions about racism, and people don't understand the complexity of racism. And people are often uncomfortable talking about racism. But it exists, and it has existed from the beginning of our nation. And we have to recognize that because those systems are in place, there have been barriers. And the same thing for women. Women did not come into the world with the right to vote. And so as a result of getting a late start in many career fields, there are barriers for women. And we have to acknowledge that in Virginia, there are parts of our state, parts of the Commonwealth, where poverty is and has been a part of life for generations. Those three aspects do not minimize that each of us as individuals have a diversity story. Each of us bring some aspect of diversity to our work, to our lessons, teaching. And so we acknowledge that, but we have to also recognize that we do have barriers based on race, gender, and poverty, okay? So those are some of the discussions that we had as we were crafting this definition. But we also didn't just talk about, what are the words, what are the right words, which was a significant part, but we also looked at the data. And when you look at the data, which I hope many of your colleges are beginning to do, when you disaggregate the data, which means that you look at how women are doing, how men are doing, and you look at those groups in comparison, as well as individually. And then you look at race, and it's no longer sufficient for us to say minority and non-minority. We've got to go ahead and look at how white students are faring, how Black students are faring, Native American, Hispanic, Latinx students, Asian American. And we've got to begin to look at how each group is faring. And I can tell you that when we look at completion rates, the way, meaning, the numbers of people who graduate or who earn a credential, that we could do better for all students of every race. And so I think I just kind of, here we go. This is what the goal is. Virginia's community colleges will achieve equity in access, learning outcomes, and success for students from every race, ethnicity, gender, and socioeconomic group. So that is the strategic goal for the next 6 years. And again, as I was saying before I hit this slide, we can do better for all students of every race, especially when you look at the data when it is disaggregated. So again, I hope that your colleges are beginning to look at that. And so when we take that goal, we're looking at even more specific areas. Communication and engagement really become an important part of how all of our employees learn about the strategic plan, the strategic goal. And so we know that as task force members, people from throughout our Virginia community colleges participated in this. We know that other employees were not engaged in the kind of data explorations that everyone else was. So communication and engagement, you'll be hearing more about how other colleges, other colleagues who were not involved will learn more about the strategic plan. Another part of it is that we've got to reimagine teaching and learning. And how do we build lesson plans and what do we teach in our classrooms, in our programs? How do we reach students who may be unlike the faculty that we currently have? So teaching and learning is a really critical part of the strategic plan. Also, how we support our students, because we know that access is an issue from many students, and their ability to complete is another issue. So we want to be mindful that all students, even though we have open access situations at our colleges, meaning that anyone is accepted to our colleges, but just because we have that does not mean that all students know how to navigate the process of enrolling in school, because they may be the first generation to attend our colleges. And again, if you come from a background in which your family has been low income for generations, college may be something that you've never thought about. So we've got to we must make sure that we're not assuming that everyone knows that access is available to them. So access is the entry level, but then the completion, how do we support students once they get through the door, is another key part of this category, this third supporting goal. Then I want to move to the meaningful credentials and the future of work. So some of that discussion as we were building the strategic plan talked about, should we be providing training for career fields that result in low income career paths? And that was, it's almost an ethical issue. You ask someone to spend money on their education, and then once they've done that, they've gotten their credential or their degree, and then we ask them to enter a career field that doesn't pay much, or it is an impoverished salary. So that was a discussion that occurred about meaningful credentials and the future of work. And finally, the fifth supporting goal was to talk about how do we reimagine how people can finance their education. How can we get the funding that we need to transform our community colleges? And so that might mean for a student that we allow students to pay on a payment plan like they do for their car payment or a rental payment. So these are some of the discussions that occurred over time, and the strategic plan is available for you to look at on the VCCS website. It may be available for on your college website, I'm not sure, but certainly all of your presidents have been involved and know about this this strategic plan. And certainly, this is not a document that is going to just be written, approved, and we do nothing else. This is a document that will be living and that we will be tracking how well we are performing on our efforts to meet these supporting goals. And so I've talked a lot already, and I want to just pause for a moment and see what questions you might have thus far about the strategic plan. And Teresa, I think you had asked someone to look at the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat, Carla, and I don't see any questions yet. But you're
Okay.
welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question.
And maybe I'm boring them to tears. They're having coffee and all of that. But anyway, I want to switch to my PowerPoint now. Let me stop this share. And while you're, okay, here we go.
Carla,
Yeah.
we do have one question. This question is, they want to know if we are partnering with any other agencies like the federal government.
Yeah. One of the efforts that's going through, that's currently being discussed and I think implemented at some of the colleges, we are trying to, and I'm not closely entwined with this effort, so I don't know the status, but I know there was an effort to work with the federal government and also state government to make sure that when we talked about, you know, the success of students and what supports they need to move from access to completion, one of the things we realize is that students have other problems. You know, they may be hungry every day when they come to class. They may have challenges with childcare. And so there is an effort underway. And as I said, I'm not intimately involved in that, so I don't know where it is. But there is a way that they're trying to connect students right away with those resources so that they're aware of the opportunity to get support for food, access to childcare, and things that really can become barriers to families and individuals who want to do better, but they have challenges there. So, you know, I would say that I know that those discussions are underway. I hope that answers the question.
And there's another question in there. What does that mean for the future of credentialing programs that provide a impoverished career? Is there a set salary you're looking at?
Yeah, you know, that I sat on the committee that dealt with student support, and the committee that you're talking about was led by Dr. Hutchison, who is at Virginia Highlands. And so I don't know exactly whether they're going to use a salary level, but, you know, I think that they're wrestling with the idea that some of the career fields that we need do not pay as much as they should. In other words, they are not valued by our society as much as they should be. And so that is a balancing act, a wrestling, an ethical wrestling match, so to speak, that colleges are going to have to think about. Do we, for instance, encourage people to go into nurse aid roles when maybe we should be encouraging them to enter the track to become a registered nurse. So, those are ideas that will be wrestled with over the coming months and years as we try to figure out what the best way is forward for the students that we serve. And remember, what we are doing is serving the community at large. What we do in training students, educating students, we help the communities that they live in. So what I would encourage you all to do is pull down the strategic plan and take a look at it and see what some of the strategies may be. But that was certainly one of the conversations that occurred as we were wrestling with that, the future of work and credentials.
Okay, and the last question before we go on is there a plan to look at how we cultivate true equity mindedness with faculty, staff, and administrators?
Oh, yes. And I think maybe as soon as, well, I'll say this. I know by the end of the year, and I think it's sooner than that, I just don't know the exact date, that part of the implementation of this strategic plan is to figure out how we will measure our success in each area. And so that means that we've got to begin training people about what equity is. That definition that I shared with you initially, what is equity? And we've also got to help us understand that we have had a society that has rules, patterns, practices that were created by a dominant culture, in many cases without regard to the needs of other parts of our culture. And so it is part of the work to help everyone, whether you're faculty, whether you're interacting with students through financial aid or other parts of our educational institutions. Excuse me. One of the goals is to make sure that you understand that students of every race, ethnicity, gender, and income, socioeconomic status, every student needs support. And part of that journey, I know that you will probably hear on each of your college campuses, is to look at the data, as I said, in a disaggregated fashion, so you know that equal opportunity is not available. Access to that equal opportunity is not available to all. Okay, so I hope that is that touches on what you might be looking on. So look for professional development and understanding what it means to be culturally competent. And I would say that if you have not heard, you should be hearing that current employees throughout, current state employees throughout the Commonwealth, not just in the Virginia community colleges, but every state agency, people are expected to be taking a class through the Commonwealth of Virginia Learning Center a class called The Road to Cultural Competence. And that class is an online class that probably will take you 1 hour to complete that. It probably won't even take you that. But that is a requirement for all state employees to take that before December 31st of this year. And so that is a class, session, whatever you want to call it, that is being provided by the Commonwealth of Virginia as part of the governor's effort to ensure that we're thinking about issues like equity, inclusion, and diversity. So if you hadn't heard, you heard it here today on July 14th. You've got, as a state employee, until December 31st to take that course, The Road to Cultural Competence, available on the Commonwealth of Virginia Learning Center. Okay, so that's part of the education that the state is providing, but you'll hear more information about what training opportunities are available throughout the VCCS. And I know that I'm about to launch a pilot study where we're going to have 500 employees throughout the VCCS try out some diversity-related online training and see if they like it well enough as a starting point to share with all of VCCS. So I'm kind of behind on that, but you'll certainly be hearing about it if you're one of the 500 who are chosen to take those courses. But the truth of it all is that, and the chancellor will say this, and I've quoted him a number of times, and this is not an exact quote, but he says that being culturally competent is a leadership competency. And from my standpoint, you can be a leader in any role that you have in our great institutions. You don't have to be a manager to be a leader. In fact, you can be a manager and not be a leader. So you can spark the conversations. And what it requires is that we are open and understand that we have people of all backgrounds and all circumstances, all races, gender, economic status, and we have to make a place for all of us. Okay? There was something else. Let me see if there was another. Okay. I'll find that link to the Road to Cultural Competence. Okay. So let me go ahead and share let me get to the right screen. Okay. So I gave you the background on the strategic plan. And so you realize now from hearing that is that we've got to really change not only the mindsets, the commitment to equity for all, but we've got to begin to hire people who understand the necessity, the commitment to people of all races. And that means, yes, I'm going to be committed to people who are Black, people who are Hispanic, Latinx, people who are Asian, Native American, and white. And that means that we've got to make sure that we're aware. Now my screen is not moving. Okay. That we're aware that bias exists. And I think I saw Dr. Young on this call. He's currently in my search advocate training, so this will be familiar with him. But in each of our institutions, we are battling bias. We're battling bias on two fronts. One is the individual thoughts that we have, and one is the institutional barriers that we have. Remember, in the definition of equity, I talked about practices, policies, and procedures. That, in essence, represents the institutional bias. But today, let's talk a little bit about the individual bias. And that is our tendency to favor or be against something or someone. And often those biases are based on stereotypes that we've heard simply by walking through the world, talking to people, watching people, and that is how we develop these biases, the individual biases. The other part is the institutional bias, and that is basically, as I said, the practices, the procedures, the policies that we have at our jobs. And this results in whether people are basically the in group or the out group. Someone who is advantaged by being a part of a dominant culture, or someone who might be disadvantaged. And together, we've got to recognize this third bit, that the cognitive bias is basically how we think. And it acts so quickly, our brains act so quickly as we're processing and interpreting information that can cause us to make errors in decisions and judgments. And that can impact how we hire. So I often show this quick videotape. Let's see if I can share my audio. Hold on. Here we go. Oops.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
2016 was the year that implicit bias went somewhat mainstream.
Yeah, so when Hillary Clinton mentioned implicit bias in the debates, our phones started blowing up, all our friends started emailing us about it.
But what is implicit bias? Implicit biases are basically thought processes that happen without you even knowing it. Little mental shortcuts that hold judgments you might not agree with. And sometimes the shortcuts are based on race. First, some clarity. Saying someone has an implicit bias is different from calling someone a racist.
The word racist is a highly loaded term, right, here in American society. A lot of times, when people are using it, they're thinking of the kind of old-fashioned Ku Klux Klan style racist.
But implicit bias isn't anywhere near that, explicit.
Implicit bias is something that comes out of ordinary mental functioning, out of how the mind normally works.
We've all grown up in a culture with media images, news images, conversations we heard. Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
I'm not sure what happened to the video, but basically what you would have heard, just for the sake of time, it's a short video, and I can share that with you all, is that because we're living, because we are walking through the world, we pick up images, we pick up thoughts that create bias within us. And as the speaker said, there are two types of bias: the explicit bias, which means you know about a bias and you act on it. So if you are a firefighter and you think that women can't do the job as well as men, then you might say, I'm not going to consider women firefighters. But if you have an implicit bias, you may simply, and you're a firefighter, you may simply think, well, that I'm not sure why Susie's not a good fit, but I don't think she is. And you may not even be aware that you're making that decision. But both implicit bias and explicit bias can impact our hiring process, and we need to be aware of that. There may be people who have certain views about who should be hired, and they will tell you about it, or they will act in a certain way in their hiring decisions. But then there are those of us who are, purely innocent and unaware that we have a bias. So the way that we began to address these biases is at the very beginning by looking at the jobs that we put forth. And we have to change how we think about, as I said, who we hire. And we have to think about the future. What does the future hold for a career field, for a subject matter that we're teaching? And do we express that in our job announcements, in our job openings? And then we've got to look at, do we have a variety of perspectives and expertise in our departments? Because with each hire, we should make sure that we are advancing the institution, making sure that we can do things that we may not have been able to do previously. And we want to also pay attention to how the position interacts with diversity. So if you're in financial aid and you have to deal, you have to deal with students of all backgrounds, are you comfortable doing that? Will you give the same service and respect and ideas to everyone, not just people with whom you feel most comfortable? And that is a question that touches race, that touches gender, that touches socioeconomic status, just as our strategic plan said. And then we want to look at what are the basic qualifications, the required qualifications, and whether our preferred qualifications are truly essential to being able to perform the job duties. And then we want to make sure that we end up revising the job opening to reflect all of those changes. And so this is part of what we do as search advocates, is begin to examine the positions from the very beginning before we go out there. And this is part of the search advocate process. So let me go back. Did anyone have any questions about that?
So somebody put on here, just assess your attitudes or beliefs about various topics and receive some information about yourself through this Harvard Research Survey. So it's on there. And if anyone wants to click on the chat, they can see that.
Okay.
The link to that search.
Yeah, that's the Harvard Implicit Association Test, which is one way to consider what you associate with different aspects of life. For example, they have tests that look at your thoughts about other races, women in the workforce, colorism, meaning do you have preferences for light skin or dark skin, and just a whole variety of tests. But it is something that's been used, and we use it. I use it in the search advocate training as a way to stimulate thought and raise awareness about what your biases may be. So I'm glad someone put that in the chat as something to consider. And often I hear people say, well, that's not me, it doesn't reflect my values. And what I often ask as a counterpoint is, what if it is true? Because remember, implicit biases are silent, unconscious, and this test is nowhere near, it does have controversial or detractors, but it is something interesting to do, something to consider. Okay, I hope I have until 11. That's what I was operating on. But I wanted to share with you just the Oregon State Search Advocate process that we brought here in 2009, and draw your attention to the 11 versus 25. This is a statistic that really attracted the chancellor. He really wants the colleges to increase the numbers of search advocates, and this is why. When a search advocate, and you can see what a search advocate is to the left, I won't read all that. When a search advocate is used in a search committee effort, you have more than double the chance of hiring someone from an underrepresented background. When they did this study, without a search advocate, an underrepresented person was chosen only 11% of the time. But with a search advocate, you doubled the chances of hiring a person from an underrepresented group. And I often get this comment, which is, we just want to hire the best person. And often, the telegraph that I hear is that the best person for the job is someone who is similar to who we are. And in many of our colleges, that often is someone who is white. And the chancellor will say this, and I say it in agreement with him, is that we've got to build a faculty and staff who look like our students. And we have done a better job in hiring in our classified ranks so that our classified employees look more like our students in some cases. But when we look at faculty, for example, we are not reflecting what our student body is. So our student body, when we look at all of Virginia's community colleges, students of color make up about 43% of our students. But when we look at faculty, it's only 20% of our faculty who are faculty of color. And so that has an impact on our students. It has an impact on the relationships that they're about to build with faculty members. It has a relationship in what they believe they can become by seeing someone who is educated, professional, and doing work that they love. And so I would just say that I took a group out to Oregon State to look at the program, and we brought it back. And Gillis, who was the program director at Oregon State, came out and trained. And these are the topics that you learn or you touch on as a search advocate. I gave you a little taste of the implicit bias because I think that's a big one. And the other part I gave you a taste of is just the importance of developing a position that does not exclude people. And I would say that women, you know, we talk about race and we've got to become more comfortable talking about race. But when we look at the position analysis, and I won't go over that again, but women will look at a job and they will say, I don't meet all of the qualifications. So they automatically withdraw their applications, or they won't apply. Versus men who will, you know, studies will say that men will look at a job opening and they will decide whether to apply for the job or not. And so we've got to make sure that our positions, our job openings, truly reflect the need to bring more people on board, not fewer, but more people on board. We want to encourage people of backgrounds who are not like everyone else in the department. And so that is part of the search advocate process, to make sure that we are paying attention to, one, who's serving on the search committee, two, do our job openings really reflect the skill sets that we need, and three, do we have a process that is full of rigor that really allows people to be fairly evaluated. And one of the culture shifts that we're asking people to do is to offer more interviews to more people. If they meet the qualifications, we're asking colleges to interview them before they move to this, what I call an artificial 3 to 5 people as a finalist. And so a search advocate is in the room from beginning to end, from start to finish. We start with the position and we end with welcoming someone on board to our institution. And this is having rigor in our search and selection process, meaning that we're really combing through resumes and making sure that the people meet the required qualifications for a job, And that means that everyone who gets an interview, regardless of their race, age, gender, socioeconomic status, you know that they are qualified to perform that job because of the rigor that search advocates help institute in the search and selection process. Part of the other important aspect of hiring is that we, as I mentioned earlier, we have to change the way that we hire people. We've got to make sure that they are committed to equity and they're comfortable with diversity and they can operate in an inclusive way, meaning that they're not going to exclude people. And so I would say, as we have 5 minutes left, that the importance of our hiring decisions are so important, cannot be minimized. The importance of our hiring cannot be minimized. And so we want to make sure that we are thinking about who we hire, what their commitments are, and it begins from the position analysis, as we said, to the interview. And what I am promoting is that when you interview people, you throw away those, oh, these are my favorite interview questions, and you go back to the skills that are identified in that position, and you pay attention to diversity. So if someone is uncomfortable, has no experience working with diverse groups of people, then maybe that is not the best qualified person. And we've got to be comfortable talking about that. We've got to make sure that we are asking about that in the interview process as it is related to the job performance. And if employees are dealing with diverse groups of students, students of color, students from poor backgrounds, women and men, and they are not going to give full and complete service to everyone. That's what I call equitable compassion. We give everyone access to their dreams. And it doesn't matter if you've never seen someone who is Black and wants to major in biology. That's just one example. But we've got to be mindful. And with 3 minutes left, I will just ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Agree or disagree with what I've said today.
Diane put in there, how will you determine that?
How will we determine what?
Okay, Diane, you want to unmute yourself and
Yeah, I was just wondering when, you said you would ask questions. So in the interview, that's how you would determine whether they would not have bias or?
Yeah. So
how you would determine whether the employee, before they were employed, whether they would actually be inclusive.
yeah. So, what we have to do is change our interview questions so that they're based on past behavior. So, for example, a question might be, can you talk a little bit about how you have helped students who are unlike yourself? And that is a way that you begin to explore whether they have experience with communities who are unlike themselves. And maybe they don't. Well, what have you done to prepare to work in an environment that serves all types of people?
Okay.
And
If
I think that's the best way to explain that.
Thank you. Now, if they ask a question, the panel, because we generally have to follow set questions and aren't supposed to divert from that. But I'm assuming then they can ask whatever follow-up questions they want to, individually.
Yeah.
Okay, so it isn't.
Yeah.
So they will have some leniency in follow-up questions.
Yeah, but what I'm suggesting, Diane, is that we begin to incorporate the question about diversity, the question about equity in that initial set of interview questions that are approved and that are connected to the work being done. So, for instance, you know, if the position, if the person has no dealings with any students, then maybe it's not a relevant factor. But if a person is engaging with students and we have a diverse group of students, that, as the chancellor says, is a competency. Cultural competency is what we need to be aware of as we are hiring. And it needs to be something that we are aware of and that we are providing as current employees. We've got to move and improve our understanding of what equity is and what it means for the jobs that we're doing every day at our colleges. Thank you for the question, Diane.
Thank you.
So Carla, Megan Donnie says she's a search advocate at New River Community College. And she
Great.
says that they have been asking questions about how candidates have supported diversity efforts and what they would do to do so in the position that they're being interviewed for.
Excellent. That's the perfect example of how we need to move and change how we hire. So Megan, thanks for asking, or thanks for sharing that.
So are there any more questions? If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, go ahead. If not, then I think we're going to let Carla go so she can cut that fan on. And I hope that your air-conditioned person will be there ASAP. You might
Me
even need to
too.
take a cold shower now.
You see the glow on my face, that's sweat.
You're sparkling. You're sparkling. No.
Well,
Any
thank
other
you
questions?
again for the invitation. And I'm happy to come back at any time. If you want to reach out to me later, I'll throw my name, my email in the chat. And let me see if I can get that here.
So,
Hold on.
like I said, we will have this, we will have the recording and some links to some things that were in this recording. We'll put that on our VCCA website so that you can go back and listen to this or look up those sites. And also we'll have a contact in there for Carla, so that if you want to reach out to her, she's a fantastic person and you will have a great conversation with her. I do have to say that. So thank you so much. I do encourage all that if you've enjoyed what we presented so far, please continue to look out. We'll have presentations each month. I'm not sure what's next month right off the bat, but it's on our site. And if you like this and you think this might be some great professional development, please consider joining the Virginia Community Colleges Association. Dues are very low and the conferences are amazing, amazing. So thank you so much, Carla.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. You too.